This webinar replay joins a conversation in progress between Jennifer Sanborn, Tabcom's Director of Development, Magda Amargos, Tabcom's liaison to the American Baptist Foundation, the Baptist Church of Grafton, and other churches interested in learning more about planning faithfully for the future. When I was interviewing for this position, the hour had wrapped up. We were just at the end of our Zoom call, and Reverend Dr. Mary Day Hamill, our regional executive minister, who extends her best to all of you, she said, "Anyone have any last questions?" And one of our esteemed board members threw out, "What would you say to someone who says you can't have an endowment and be faithful with your money?" Talk about a massive question to drop when you've got about 30 seconds to answer. And my response, while I didn't reference these particular scriptures, I could have chosen any of a dozen different examples, right? But in a second, you'll see that it has to do with a kind of interplay between these. So with that preface, David, would you read for us from Genesis?
Sure. Let Pharaoh proceed to appoint overseers over the land and take 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 plenteous years. Let them gather all the food of these good years that are coming and lay up grain under the authority of Pharaoh for food in the cities, and let them keep it. That food shall be a reserve for the land against the 7 years of famine that are to befall the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish through the famine.
Thank you. And Rich.
And this is the early followers of the way as recorded in Acts 2:44-47. All who believed were together and had all things in common. They would sell their possessions and goods and distribute the proceeds to all as any had need. Day by day, as they spent much time together in the temple, they broke bread at home and ate their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having the goodwill of all the people. And day by day, the Lord added to their number those who were being saved.
Thanks be to God. So I'll invite you, and I'm going to make this somewhat rhetorical because I've taken more time than I told Magda I would take to get us warmed up here.
Okay.
But I just invite you to consider what these passages say to us about our care of our resources and our care of each other. At first glance, for me, I would say they appear somewhat different. One kind of justifying a save for the future mindset, and the other being a give it away now. There's so much need. But in fact, when I read them side by side, I hear both as being really discerning, using wise leadership, using the structures of community that we have to ensure that our resources can meet God's needs, not only in this moment, but also into the future. And I said in a good Baptist way, we're Baptists. We should sit together and engage the tensions of Scripture if we have these questions about what we do faithfully with our money. So in that spirit, Magda, I'm going to stop sharing and turn things over to you. And again, thank you all for being here. Really a privilege to share the evening with you.
Yes, thank you all for being here. And for this opportunity, I'm truly grateful, especially at 8 o'clock, almost 8 o'clock at night, right? Where, where you should probably be resting. So I appreciate you all for being here. And let me tell you, I have also visited Grafton. And when I thought of a gift that keeps giving to me, is when I hear a church say, thank you for what you've done for us. And that to me is just so fulfilling. But let me stop my emotions and go directly into the strengthening your financial future, and we will talk about endowments. I do bring you greetings from our executive director, the Reverend Dr. Christine Grouch, and we are extremely, extremely grateful for the partnership with Tabcom and for this two wonderful women you see here in the leadership, the Reverend Dr. Mary Day Hamill, your executive minister, and this wonderful lady who is so passionate about the work that she's doing for the region. She's always passionate about any work that she's doing. I've seen that. But in this case, to be your director of development, Jennifer is just the perfect person for that.
And I told Magda, I'm going to interrupt you just once in your presentation because I need to give a full disclosure. American Baptist Ministry is a family business. My sister-in-law is actually Chris Rausch. And so she has been in my life for many decades. And I think her passion for the work is actually part of what spurred me. It was a year ago that she called me and said, "Hey, you want to talk with Massachusetts about a development role?" So full disclosure, I am here for the good of all American Baptists, and I happen to have a relationship with that one particular American Baptist leader.
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, our director is definitely passionate about the work she does. She's passionate about helping every single ministry. And when I said ministry, it's not just the local church, it's not just the regions, every single ministry within the American Baptist family and beyond. And I said that because Terry is in the church is duly aligned. We can work with that. We can work with your church as well. American Baptist Foundation was created for two main purposes. One was to do plain giving for our American Baptist men and women. And the other one was to help churches create investments and endowment services. We offer tools to help organizations to establish permanent endowment funds, build long-term financial sustainability, create structured pathways for legacy gifts, and strengthen the ministry impact for generations to come. We provide professional full income investments, socially screened portfolios, administrative simplicity, transparent reporting, online account access. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, be more specific in some of them. And we reduce record keeping. I know treasurers appreciate that. Order burdens and administrative strains. When a ministry in the American Baptist churches decides to invest and create an endowment with the American Baptist Foundation, they have this investment options: a blended portfolio, which is balanced growth and stability. And I'll show you a little more detail of that also. Stock portfolio is growth oriented. You know, it's aggressive, but it's definitely growth oriented. The fixed portfolio, stability focused, and the ESG portfolio that is also balanced growth and stability. Aligned with ABC USA values, we don't invest in anything that has to do with alcohol, firearms, tobacco, gambling. And as you can see with the ESG, besides all these restraints, we also do not invest in fossil fuels. You know, those are. And this is what I was talking about before. So the blended fund is 70% stock, 30% bonds. The ESG also is the same way, 70% stock and 30% bonds. The fixed fund, it's 100% bonds, and the stock fund, of course, is 100% equities. The investment oversight, we work with a group, it's called the GEM Group, and they're part of Merrill Lynch. They make the recommendation, they're just a wonderful group. They work with nonprofit organizations, and they make the recommendations to our investment committee. We also have institutional advisors, social responsible alignment, strategic fees negotiation. they are also wonderful in that we always beg for their fees to be lower and lower, and they have, and they work with us. I tell them they're about this close to become American Baptists because they really are passionate about helping every company that works with them. But in this case, they know us very well. We've had a long-term relationship with them. The total fees are 1%, which are competitive and very transparent. So what makes us different? I always say churches can go to any investment company and put their money there, and they will make a growth. But what makes the difference when you do that through the American Baptist Foundation? Number one, we offer investment excellence. Like I said, you saw everything that we do not invest in, and they still offer us and look for the best investment companies, not only to grow, but looking at the stability of our funds. Plan giving expertise, customized marketing support, donor cultivation strategy, ministry sustainability partnership. Truthfully, we don't just grow your funds. We help you grow a culture of generosity. And that's our biggest difference, I'd say. Investments, yes, we do it well. And I'm not saying others don't do it well. On the contrary, yes, they do it well. But we work with your donors. And when I say donors, it's not only church members, but I always say church members, friends of the church, people in the community. Why? Because anybody that sees what your vision is, what you're working, how you help the community, may not even come to your church, but they will support your work because they admire what you do. We are able to create brochures for you, and these are some of the samples of the brochures. That helps us to create a brochure that will tell your story. These are printed ones. They're also available electronically. These days, nobody wants printed stuff. They don't want to say anything, and that's understood. And the beautiful thing about having it electronic is that you can, besides adding it to your websites, you can send that to 1 million people in an email and share what you're doing. So that's what when it comes to communicating and sharing what the endowment is going to support. It will let them learn what you're working towards, what this endowment is really going to support. This is a beautiful example of one of our accounts. I should have also done the one, but anyway, this is an example of one of our accounts. And this is how it started, with a little bit under $500,000, so $449. This would be the growth, which is not too bad, about $33,000 a year. And look at the years, pandemic and 22 and all that. So it's not too bad. But this is the true value of the account. That is the impact that strengthening your financial future makes when we work with individuals in your church, and again, donors that support your ministry through plan giving. And that's what makes the difference. Big jump here. You know what that means? That means that somebody went home with the Lord. But this is there. This is possible because we work with this individual to show him. We sat and we said, okay, what are the resources that you have? What is it that is in your heart to do for ministry? And we just found the ways. This individual had more than 10 gift annuities with us, besides having other investments in other places. But working with the foundation, he decided his entire estate was he had no family, no children, no spouse. So everything went to ministry. This is possible, my friends. This happens. This is the work we do. So let me talk about really quickly about how these strengthening your financial future works, and why the plan giving portion of that is so important. Plan giving encourages larger, meaningful gifts, strengthens long-term ministry funding. When you create an endowment, it is very possible that we do a plan giving seminar. A person will tell me, Magda, I have appreciated stocks and I don't want to pay taxes on that appreciation. So can I make a gift of that? Absolutely. So your endowment can go from $10,000, just to give an example, and this has actually happened to one of my churches, to $23,000 in a matter of a month. They created the account, and within 2 months, by the transactions when it was up to $23,000. So that's what happens. But other times we sit and we talk to individuals who want to use a will to create a legacy and to make a gift and so on. So that gift will come later. But again, this gives eventually will still come in if we don't do that. If we don't educate, if we don't share the information with our congregation, then we will not get it. Guess who's going to get it? The American Red Cross, the American Cancer Society, all good things. Your colleges, your seminaries, they will ask. But if we don't share this information, if we don't present this opportunity to the members and friends of our church, then we're losing it. And you know what, to me, I always said, not only are we missing out on contributions that could have come to support the ministry, to support the endowment, but we're missing out on letting them know they can create a legacy. Even if it's a $25 a month gift into your endowment, because that comes from the heart of the person. And that is such a joy. It gives them feeling that pride that they did something to contribute to the expansion of the ministry and your vision. So that's what it is. It's not about, and I love this, and I always make a point about this because it is important for all of us to understand. This is not replacing annual giving. This has nothing to do with the tithing and offerings. This is a conversation that goes beyond, spans the stewardship conversation to resources that the individuals have. Usually our members hold maybe about 9%, maybe a little bit less, of their estate in cash. And usually the question is, okay, what can I write a check for? Or how much can you write a check for us to support the ministry? When we talk to individuals in the ministry, in your pews, in your churches, the conversation goes beyond that. It goes about the other 90+ percentage of their estate. And please do understand that the most important for us is for the person to be well, for the person to be cared for until God takes that person home. Their family as well. But then when that's taken care of, what can we present them? We should present them. It's our responsibility to give them the opportunity to create a legacy. Everything that we own belongs to God. It's a gift from God. So why not use a portion of that? And I'm not saying that it's not good to leave to American Red Cross and all the other charitable institutions. But we should be there. We should be part of that. And that it's a service to our members and friends of the church. Just expanding a little bit on what I'm talking about, these are some of the gifts that can possibly come as a result of working with plan giving in your congregations. Stocks and bonds, I already gave you a big example of the stocks. Retirement assets, why not? Sometimes people say, I don't have anything else but my retirement account. Well, maybe a portion of that can be used. And not only can be used, there are benefits to the individual when they do that. Real estate, life insurance. That's the simplest way. Magda, I don't have a penny to my name, but I do have $100,000 life insurance. Well, can you include the church or the ministry in what percentage of that? We're not saying don't protect your family, but again, it's part of the education, because a lot of our members don't even realize that they can make a gift this way. The wills and bequests, of course, donor advice fund. Easy way, easy way. Chargeable gift annuities, I talked about, which is a contract made between the foundation and the individual, where this individual will receive income as long as they live or until they decide they no longer want this gift annuity. And at times people tell me, I don't need that money. let's turn that into a gift for ministry. So there are many possibilities. And IRA rollovers. Beautiful, perfect resource to make a gift. Why? The IRA, what happens? You haven't paid taxes on that. And I always say I envy Uncle Sam's memory, because he always remembers when we owe them taxes. So the government, the IRS, has allowed us to roll over part of our IRA, excuse me, to make a gift. So there are so many ways and so many possibilities to make a gift to grow the resources to continue to do ministries for generations to come. I talked about this already. So we move from the question about, okay, how much can you give me cash or write a check for, to what asset has God entrusted you that you could advance, that you can use to advance ministry. So plan giving really does unlock the larger portion of the state. Wow, I went faster than that. I'm sorry, I was trying to be mindful of the time. Just one thing I want to mention, especially in the case of Terry, where he's in a duly aligned church. When we work with individuals in the churches and they create a gift, whether it's a gift annuity, the only thing that we ask is that at least 50% of the gift goes to an ABC related ministry. The other 50% can go to the other affiliations that the church has, or the nonprofit organization of their choice. But other than that, it's to sustain the ministry. And if 50% of that is the church and it's duly aligned, that's it. It's a simple step. But I wanted to mention that, especially in that case. And it's the same if it's duly aligned or triply aligned. It doesn't matter. It's ministry. So we do this so to grow the resources, to be available, to be able to do ministry. I was working with a church in Philadelphia last Saturday, and they tell me, yes, Magda, we keep telling everybody we have been we have a beautiful building. We were the recipients of this resources that has allowed us to do the ministry up to now 200 years. They're celebrating this year. And they said, and we have to think, what are we going to leave? How are we going to continue the ministry so that our young people and our children continue the ministry, continue to have a church? I said, wait a second, not only that, you're forgetting one thing. You're forgetting all of those that will come because of the ministry of this church. So it's unless trust me, that sample that I show you about growing an endowment, it can happen at a regional level and it can happen at a church level, because we give the opportunity, we present the opportunity for our members and friends of the church to support the ministry. I've gone really quick through a lot. There's a lot more. That's part two of our seminars, Jennifer. But I know I've gone really fast because I want to respect everybody's time. If you have any questions, Jennifer, I give it back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Magda. It is such a helpful kind of primer on what it is that the foundation does. And because for me, the best learning happens in the form of stories, it felt really important to include a church's story in this. And so, Rich, I don't know if you are empowering Steve and David. I have communicated with them about this. So, okay, good. I didn't want to overlook the pastor if he was entering into
Oh,
introduce
no.
something as well. But David and Steve are going to talk about the Baptist Church of Grafton and their own experience with choosing the American Baptist Foundation and what has resulted since. So I'll hand it over to them.
And I'm here primarily as a listener.
Beautiful. Glad you're here.
And a player. But there's a phrase that Jennifer's mentioned a number of times, which is, I got it right, Jennifer, do well to do good. And I just want to kind of set the stage a little bit. And then I'm going to ask or turn it over to Steve, and he's going to describe an important change in the life of the Baptist Church of Grafton. But this notion of doing well to do good is our story is partly that, and it's partly a story of survival, and a belief that one implies the other and vice versa. I joined this church 5 decades ago. And at the time, we were a thriving church on the Common in the center of Grafton, growing membership, multi-generational membership, beloved full-time pastor with a family living in a church-owned parsonage. Sounds delightful, doesn't it? Time passes, and that brings us to Steve.
Yes, that those were the good days. But yeah, our particular situation, our financial situation has changed pretty drastically in the last 10 years. As David mentioned, we used to have a number of members, but we're still kind of a small church. And I would have said about 10 years ago, I think we probably still had about 100 members. And our last full-time minister that we had left in August of 2016. And at that time, we established a search committee that was looking for a new settled pastor. And we had an interim that we had for about 2 years during that period. And we finally, the search committee brought forward a candidate for the settled pastor position, but the vote failed. And as a result of discussions and issues that came up as a result of what was going on, we lost a number of members left the church. And then so also during this time period, we had a parsonage that was basically sitting empty that we were spending money on. We started doing some upgrades on it. We didn't know where we were going to go, so we wanted to have it ready. Finally, we did after that first interim minister we had kind of left right after we had the failed vote, and we found a new interim minister, was located and hired, and that minister is now our part-time minister, Pastor Rich. And as I said, as a result of that failed vote and losing membership, we are now a much smaller organization that is mostly made up of retired individuals and those that are getting on in years. We've had some individuals that have joined the last few years, but we're still having the nutrition due to the aging membership and those that are, being called home. This, as a result of all this, it kind of told us we needed to do something different if we were going to survive and keep this church operating. We needed to move the budget that was mostly totally funded by ourselves, church members, to something completely different. Um, to add to those issues, we've got an older church building that was built in 1930 and requires a lot of maintenance. And we're also now looking for a new organist, and I think we're about to see a sticker shock for that. That's going to add to our woes. And I think kind of going back to what Magna was talking about a little bit about the plan getting, I like the idea of the folks, being able to pledge money towards an endowment, but we have trouble just getting members to provide, giving us numbers during our plan giving campaign to kind of get an idea where we're at for a budget. So that kind of sets the stage for us trying to figure out what our annual budget is and where we're going to get the funds to make up to keep the things going there. So that's kind of where we've gotten to. And I think David can kind of fill us in on how we're moving from there.
Well, the key part of the story that Steve was just telling you is that we realized we had to do something different. And as we, the finance committee, looked around our organization, we recognized that we had various groups, or in some cases not groups, but the church itself, that had funds that had been left to the church or accumulated by a group at a particular point in time and never used. And we said, wait a minute, if we do something with these little pots of money, like turn them into one pot of money, we might have some way to generate income. And so that was the something different. We looked at them all as a source of income, but we needed a way to be able to generate income that was going to be consistent with, I guess I would say broadly, the beliefs that we all hold. And as we looked around, we understood eventually that the opportunity lay with ABF. Some of the things that were important to us were we needed an investment opportunity that was going to be well managed, that would make appropriate investment decisions. That's one of the things that Magna was speaking about. If you will, screening out certain kinds of investments. We needed an opportunity to generate a good return because we needed income and we needed good oversight. One of the things that I can say categorically is that none of us were investment managers. And so we did not want to develop the capabilities of doing those things on our own. And that's what took us to finally to ABF with that initial block of money, which I'll just mention was in the neighborhood of $100,000. And then there were some other things along the way that Steve's going to describe that enabled us to take that to another level. So back to you, Mr. Reichley. You're muted, Steve.
Here we go. Yeah, there was some events along the way here. That one, for example, that we had a number of years ago, we had to have the roof replaced on the church, and there were no funds readily available to do that within our operating budget. So we ended up at the time had to tap into our endowment funds that we did have at the time to fund that roof project. And as a result, we decided, well, after the roof was done, we got to replace that money. So we started a roof fund category that was part of our plan giving annual contributions, where funds could be contributed to donate to replace those funds that were spent on the roof. And then also I mentioned that we had the parsonage that remained empty for probably about 12, 18 months, and we were doing some upgrades to that, making it ready for. We didn't know what was going to happen down the road with as far as a settled pasture, so we got to the point where we ended up renting it for a few years. That resulted in generating some income instead of a money consumer on us for that. But then we eventually got to the point we decided that we're just going to sell the parsonage. So we ended up selling that parsonage and then had those proceeds available to pass on to our endowment fund there. So,
a key point of that particular step was that we were blessed with some things that I won't say they're going to happen to every church, but they can happen to any church at some point in their life. But to kind of sum up where we are now, we have a small church population. We have a part-time pastor, Pastor Rich. We have a smaller budget on a constant dollar basis, if you will. And we need an income to survive. We're currently in a position where we are able to support ABC annual offerings, a variety of mission projects around the globe, in the region, in the state, and in particular, right in Grafton, where we've done a lot to support people who are food challenged. And ultimately, we believe that our long-term ability to do good means that we need to survive and we need to grow so that we can, down the road, be in a position where we can repurpose some of the income we're generating from the endowment fund for more than maintaining the operations of the church. We want to get to a position where we can use some of that income to expand further our support for mission work. So that's, if you will, what I was really getting at when I started out by saying doing well in order to do good. Time will tell. I mean, some could have said, well, why not just give all that money away and put it to work right now in other organizations? We'd like to think that having an American Baptist church in the town of Grafton on a long-term basis is a meaningful goal, a goal that the Lord would support. So we're in that position today, and hopefully, as time passes, we get to be able to move to the stronger position we all want to be in. So that's the story.
Thank you very much for sharing your story. It's such an inspiration, and gratitude. I am so grateful to hear this. I'm grateful that the American Baptist Foundation is able to do this with you, because we're in partnership to do this. And that's what I was talking about. I've seen what you do in the community. I was there around Christmas time. So everybody came to the church. We were meeting on the side of the building in the basement, I think it was, or the side. And your whole sanctuary was full of a beautiful display of Christmas art. When I say share your story, that's what I'm talking about. Whenever, that's why we would love to create a brochure, because every time you do something for your community, there may be somebody in the community who will never come to church, whether they're just don't believe or just are belong to another Presbyterian, Methodist, whatever other church, but they admire the work you do and they want to support it. Give them the opportunity to do that. That's what I'm talking about. When I say not just the members, but friends of your ministries. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And I will be back.
Indeed. I'm going to say, for the benefit of the recording, Terry added, I went to see their nativity display as well and took 3 of my grandchildren. They still talk about it. And when I had gathered with Steve and David beforehand, I said, I was last there in December for the nativity display to see all the creches. So it really is just a beautiful offering to your community. And I promised in promoting this conversation that we would dispel myths. And if I were to name some of those myths, I would think that most people would say, well, churches that have endowments have millions of dollars. They are watching their financial forecast on an upward trajectory. They presume a kind of multi-staff, all full-time, et cetera. And thanks be to God, some churches exist in those circumstances. Many, many, many of our American Baptist churches in New England tell a story just like yours. And so your ability to say something structurally needs to change and to seek out to gather information, to establish partnership, to consider options. And then, because you had that endowment, opportunity knocked. The roof fund. Okay, we can actually replenish what we put out there because it's already invested and we can turn that right around. Let's look at the parsonage, etc. So our challenge to all of you in church leadership is to be prepared to kind of establish those spaces to store up the abundance that might come at an unexpected time and provide the means to cover into the future.
I'm sorry, Jennifer, I couldn't help it while I was listening to you. This is another example. And I love to share both because not every church can start an endowment with $500,000. This church started with $10,000 and you didn't get the joy. And the pastor's wife says, Magda, we're over 200,000. It is possible. It is possible. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be rude.
Perfect. No, I'm so glad you shared that. I said to Magda in planning that our regional executive minister has said probably 10 different times in different places, did you know that with $10,000 you could start an endowment with the American Baptist Foundation? That was an aha for her.
Yeah.
And so we want to spread that message to open the conversation. You might think not us, but open the conversation. I know we are near the top of the hour, and I promise time to ask questions or just respond in any way. Would anyone like to ask a question or just add any comments from your own context or knowledge base? Because we have a pretty learned group here around these issues.
I'll just say thank you all for so much good information and for sharing that story. That was really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
When I was listening to Magda in her presentation and talking about, a plan to increase the endowments, and I guess I was thinking it was like organic growth within the church, and I'm thinking that's probably not going to happen. But I guess you're looking at opening it up to the community to see if there's people that, even though they may not necessarily be members, they may be offering to keep that church on the common open.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one thing. The other thing is, you're probably very familiar with your congregation, but trust me when I say this, not everybody shares what they really, their state is like. We've had churches, and I have a church right here in New Jersey that had a gentleman that would come into church dressed pretty much with the same outfit every Sunday. And it wasn't anything like a sharp suit with tie. No, very, very simple person. When that person died, he left over $1 million to the church for the ministry. And it happens for two reasons. Sometimes people are concerned that they will need the money, and that's our main concern. Also, want to make sure the person is taken care of until they no longer need the money. That's one reason. And then the other one, I just want to make sure that you're doing the right thing for industry. Sometimes, really, I'm being honest, that's what I've heard before. To be able to make a gift. So I hope that's why I always say present the opportunities. Let's just share the information, and it may not come for years, but we never know. We never know.
Related to that, Magda, Tabcom as a region received a bequest. There is no known connection to the person who left it. No one can identify a human link. The best, as the story was told to me in the oral tradition, this was fairly recently, but the presumption is that at some point an American Baptist church did a kindness to him, and it was significant. And so you just never know. And having that established allows you to receive and immediately put that money to work, which is a great gift. So often, individually or congregationally, we might receive resources and they just almost evaporate if we don't have a way of kind of setting them aside to grow while we discern what might we do with this? What are the stipulations we want to establish, and so on.
Yes.
I promised that. Oh, go ahead, David.
I just wanted to offer one more piece of information to put what has happened at our church in context. And that is, we've been investing at ABF since 2016, so 10 years. We're now at a point where the annual income from what we've been able, excuse me, to invest there is about a third of our operating budget. And you think about that for a little bit, it's important. Sorry.
It's the energy-wise lights that leave you in the dark.
I'll be right back. There we are.
I used to have an office, and I would have to do jumping jacks in every meeting just to stay visible.
I need to find out from my son what it is I need to do in order to keep the lights on.
Just go wave your arm every once in a while.
Wave my arms around, I guess. But yes, I was talking about our income representing a third of our operating budget. And Steve earlier was talking about referencing a bit obliquely the challenges of doing a pledge campaign in a small church like ours. Without this source of income, if we were dependent on just what individuals can do, our doors would not be open. It's that simple. So, not to be overly dramatic about it, but we've managed to save one small New England Baptist church, at least for a while.
Praise God.
Amen. Amen. I promised that we would turn off the recording, and Magda and I will stay and be available if anyone has any additional questions. But I wondered, Pastor Rich, before I do so, would you be willing to close the conversation in prayer?
Surely. And let me just say, I appreciate very much the work that Dave David and Steve do, and the careful stewardship of the church's resources and thoughtfulness by which they manage those. I sit in on the finance committee meetings myself, and very interested in that. Perhaps not every pastor has the same passion for that, but or inclination, but I think it's really important. And I've always operated on the notion that if you want to have mission, you've got to have resources. No money, no mission.
That's right.
And so something that we really have to pay attention to, and they do. So very much appreciate that. So why don't we pray together? With grateful hearts, O God, we give you thanks for the resources you've placed before us and for the creativity that you give to us to ensure that we use those resources for ministry and mission. We appreciate the work of our American Baptist group, and particularly the foundation and the leadership that comes from the American Baptists that help us. We also appreciate so much the work of the church. We ask your blessings upon us. Bless us especially in this Lenten season as we reflect and grow in our faith. We ask your blessings through Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you all. I'm going to stop the recording and stay and be available, but we really appreciate your time and framing a recording that I know will be meaningful for many others as well.